I have been using tapping, EFT, TFT in my life for quite some time. And I really wanted to share with you how you can use tapping for unlimited amount of things that might be going on in your life, whether they be a physical, emotional, mental, relationship, whatever is going on in your life, you can use tapping as a way to help you go through the process. It can be sometimes challenging when your mind knows something and your heart maybe feels a different way. And so, how do you get the two to talk to each other, and how do you reduce that emotional arousal and that those feelings that can start coming up in different places when you're challenged? So I hope that I can share with you a technique that is amazing to help in that realm. One of the first ways that I got introduced to tapping was through my chiropractor, and going through an emotional stage in my life. And it was the Callahan technique, and it's evolved a lot since then. But I wanted to share with you sort of this easier process that can be done without necessarily having to go through all of the points. And you'll have to check out my other video on some of the other ways that we can use tapping. But how the Callahan technique and how I was first taught how to do this is essentially through what they call either the karate chop point or side of the hand, and essentially using the heart meridian to use these acupressure points in order to release that tension and emotional arousal in the amygdala, which is what they've started to figure out through their research and advancements with the technique. And it's getting a lot of popularity, which excites me a lot. And so this is very much so a self-care technique, and it is basic in terms of tapping the side of your hands together. This gets both of the sides of the hand, and this is originally how I was taught to do it. One of the first things that I learned when it came to tapping was about the 7 deadly fears. The 7 deadly fears include fear of failure, fear of not making a living or not making enough money, fear of loss of loved ones, fear of rejection of self or others, fear of illness or disease, fear of breaking some authority's rules, and the fear of not being smart enough or good enough. And it is generally these types of fears that will create cognitive dissonance for us. It will also be mostly in these realms that we see ourselves behaving in repetitive patterns that not necessarily do we like. And tapping can help us be able to get to that root cause, especially on an emotional level, when we see physical manifestations from the emotion. The startup sentence for most tapping situations is, even though I fear that, or even though I have this fear feeling, or the feeling of fear of X. But with this simple method or version of it, even though I fear failure, I totally and completely love and accept myself, which is the traditional way of ending off a tapping routine. There are so many ways that we can do it. It has evolved significantly, which is amazing. But we're just going to take a moment and do some tapping on these 7 deadly fears. And I hope that you will tap along with me. And even though one of these fears doesn't necessarily sound like something you're dealing with, I highly recommend that you still tap along with me and feel the benefits from letting go some of these emotional triggers and emotional things that can be going on. And some of them will hit closer to home at other times, more so than others. So check in with yourself, see how you're feeling on any given fear. So let's start with the fear of failure. I know this is one that I struggle with on a regular basis, especially being an entrepreneur. I always think to myself, is it my fault that I'm here? Am I capable of doing this? People pointing out or having criticisms towards me. Does that mean that I have completely failed? And so it's definitely one, that I struggle a lot. So I'm tapping in and to myself. And when I say I have a fear of failure, I'm looking at a scale of 1 to 10, which is what they call the SUD scale. And so it can just be a way for you to help monitor yourself and really tap into knowing and understanding how tapping is benefiting you. So for me, I'm getting the number 10. I really identify with the fact that I have a fear of failure. It feels and rings pretty true for me. And sometimes it can bring up a lot of emotions. And so don't feel like something is wrong if it brings up emotions for you as we go through this tapping. So the idea is generally we go through the setup statement 3 times in your traditional tapping. And then we look at how it's feeling for us. And then with this style of tapping, we're going to be looking at one particular point, which is just underneath the eye here. It is an acupressure point that manages many different systems in the body. So it would be considered a master point, helping us to relieve the arousal and the sensation into the body on a nervous system level, emotional, chemical, hormone level. So what we're going to do is we're going to tap as we are saying our setup sentence. And then as we are moving through it, we're going to tap with our hands, but also tapping on this point underneath of our eye. And it's going to be a very simple routine. So we're going to now go into it. So go ahead and follow along. Even though I fear failure, I totally and completely love and accept myself. Even though I fear failure, and it feels so true for me, I totally and completely love and accept myself in the way that I am. Even though I fear failure on a regular basis, I still totally and completely love and accept myself and honor where I'm at. So now I can feel that number. It's definitely around, that 10 number. So I'm going to be thinking about that. And now I am just going to be paying attention to the number as I tap with my hands and my fingers. I could just tap here, but I feel like we get a little bit deeper putting the two together. I can already start to feel the sensations in my body calming down and releasing. All right. If I check in with myself, it's not perfect. It hasn't gone down to a 0, but it's definitely closer to a 6 or a 7. For me, with a 2-minute routine, it's incredible results. So let's now go through each of the 7 deadly fears. The next one is fear of not making a living, not making enough money. So let's start tapping. Even though I fear not making a living or enough money to support myself and my family, I still totally and completely love and accept myself anyway. Even though I fear not making enough money or making a living, enough for my family to survive, I still totally and completely love and accept myself. Even though I fear not making enough money, I choose to honor that I've been doing the best that I can, checking in with myself, taking a nice deep breath. And let's just tap here. You could be thinking about, while you're doing this, the story that you've been telling yourself, something that maybe just happened that gives you the idea that fear is true. I'm just letting my emotion come out and have a voice and not trying to shove it back down in my body. And I can start to feel it move and shift. It takes anywhere from 10 to 15 seconds typically. And take a nice deep breath. The next deadly fear that we're going to talk about is the fear of loss of loved ones. And this can change throughout the stages of your life. So let's go ahead and tap on that. Even though I fear the loss of loved ones, I still totally and completely love and accept myself. Even though I fear the loss of loved ones, I still totally and completely love and accept myself anyway. Even though I fear the loss of loved ones, I still totally and completely love and accept myself anyway. See where you're at. See what it feels like. Who you might fear losing. Maybe you've lost someone already, so that makes you even a little bit more fearful. Completely understandable. Remember to breathe, to yawn. Let that energy move. This one can hold a lot of deepness for myself. It's the fear of rejection of self or others. And nobody wants to be rejected. And it can sometimes come from the self more so than from others. So let's think about fear of rejection of self or others. And let's start tapping. Even though I fear rejection of self or others, I still totally and completely love and accept myself for the way that I am. Even though I fear rejection of self or others, and I don't know even why, I still totally and completely love and accept the way I am. And I hope to be able to do that. Even though I fear rejection of self or others, I still totally and completely love and accept myself anyway. And some things that I'm kind of thinking to myself as I'm tapping away here is just, sometimes I just don't know what I'm supposed to do. Sometimes I'm totally lost in everything that I'm supposed to do, and I'm trying to be me. I'm trying to show up, but then I don't like necessarily what that looks like when it does happen, and I don't want people to judge me for what I say and how I feel and how I think. And I'm worried that I'm going to offend someone or, do something and there's going to be this outrage. It's so crazy. The fear of illness or disease. How prevalent is that right now? I have definitely been fearful of illness or disease. So for me, when it comes to medicine or even drugs and supplements, I'm very sensitive and, know my body, that I take, kind of less dose of things. And so it has left me susceptible in a lot of ways, especially because stress and adrenaline has been quite prevalent in my life as being an athlete, and anyways, a lot of those different things. And so I do get fearful of illness and disease. And one thing that going through hard things at an early stage in life is that if I treat myself right, and if I mentally get my emotions intact, that it's one of the best ways to help my immune system and my healing system to get me through life. And one thing that I know for certain is that when your ticket is punched, it's punched. I have no doubt that there is a greater purpose in life, and it can be a fear. It can be fear of illness or disease. Will I catch it in time, and what will it do to me, and what will it, all of those questions that seem a little bit unanswered. And so let's use this tapping to help us connect with ourselves and connect with our eternal self, and so that we have that knowing and understanding for ourselves, especially what's going on in the world today. Even though I fear illness or disease, I still totally and completely love and accept myself for who I am and for what I might or might not catch. I totally and completely love and accept myself anyway. Even though I fear illness or disease, because I know it can happen at any given time, any given moment. And that is definitely extremely unknown and uncertain. I'm going to honor my choices and honor who I am right now, and understand that I'm doing the best that I can. Even though I fear illness or disease, I still totally and completely love and accept myself anyway. So just thinking about it, and I have dealt with cold sores my whole life. That's a virus that's affected me and my relationships and how I've operated in life, and my embarrassments and traumas as a little kid. I got the Zika virus on my vacation down in Puerto Rico, and that was crazy. And so it does make me nervous about illness or disease, but what I know is that I have to live, and I cherish every moment, and I cherish what it is that is going on, and I trust. And I just hope that there's a better way for us to all understand the existence of human nature. The fear of breaking some authorities' rules. This can be very interesting because authority can come in many different shapes, sizes, and forms, from who you see as authority, someone who's trying to tell you what to do, someone who is trying to make you do something. This can be anywhere from a sibling to a parent to a teacher to a boss. This can be church leaders. This can be other people's parents. I mean, it's kind of unlimited as to whom we think and define and create as our authorities, and understanding the rules that we think they have over us and feel like we have over us. Is that the authorities fault for these things, or I mean, not necessarily are they doing it appropriately in terms of the relationship, but when we take the self-responsibility for what's going on, it can help us to feel much more clear in our own lives. It helps to clear the path of creation for ourselves. And I believe that that's one of the number one reasons as to why we're here, is to be able to clear out, even though we feel like perhaps there's other person's responsibility in things, is being able to clear that out for ourselves in a meaningful manner that allows us to become the creators that we are meant to be here on this planet and throughout our existence. Even though I fear breaking some authorities' rules and being punished for something I didn't do or didn't want to do, I still totally and completely love and accept myself anyway. Even though I fear breaking some authorities' rules, doctors, church leaders, team members, I still totally and completely love and accept myself anyway. Even though I fear breaking some authorities' rules, our health minister, our political leaders, our government, our friends, and those people that seem to be different than us, but perhaps have some sort of expectation of us that didn't even really know we had. I still totally and completely love and accept myself anyway. For me, I feel like social media has been somewhat of authority over me. And the expectations that I feel are there, even though I know they're not real. And everyone knows that they're not real, but yet we're still governed by them. Whew, a little bit teary there. Well, I can definitely tell that one's a little bit more strong. If you feel like you need another tapping round, you're more than welcome to do a tapping round, another tapping round on all of those. And of course, there's much deeper ways to do it, but this is just kind of getting you started on some of the more major areas. And you should be able to get a little bit of stress relief from just doing the one round of the 7 deadly fears. The last 7 deadly fear is the fear of not being good enough or smart enough. Whew. That's a ringer for sure. So we're gonna start by tapping on that. Even though I fear not being smart enough or good enough, I still totally and completely love and accept myself for the way I am, for who I am. Even though I fear not being smart enough or good enough, I still totally and completely love and accept myself. Even though I fear not being smart enough or good enough, I still totally and completely love and accept myself anyway. And sometimes when I feel like I'm ready for it, I can even tap on some things that I know to be true when I'm here. I am good enough. I am smart enough. Sometimes I don't know exactly what that means, but it's okay. put your hands on your heart and give yourself a few nice deep breaths. I want you to check in and see how you're feeling and what that feels like. And hopefully you're feeling better. And sometimes it can bring you to a point where you're clear on some of the things that you're struggling with. So I could encourage you to journal after this. Journal, write things down. It can really help to bring things up to the surface that you're looking to deal with or that you're wanting to deal with, and things you maybe didn't even know that you needed or wanted to deal with. And this is your introduction to tapping and what I've used for tapping and how I've enjoyed using it in my life. And I did the 7 Deadly Fears for a good 2.5 years, and I have found validity in them still and come back to them on a regular basis just to get back to the basics. And so I hope you'll tap in with me and we can go on this journey together. And I look forward to sharing more tapping experiences with you in some of the series that I have coming up. And I hope you have a most wonderful day. And I would encourage you to do this tapping series every day for, the next week at least. And it's that daily check-in that is going to give you the best results and the benefits of this. Thanks so much. See you later.